Come on, say. Who I am. Who I am. Anybody ask you who I am? If anybody asks you who you are, who you are, who you are. If anybody asks you who you are, just say you're a child of God. Say yeah. Who you are, who you are, who you are. Anybody asks you, yeah, just tell them.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound, how sweet that sound, how sweet that sound. Amazing grace, how sweet that sound, that saved a wretch like me.
My father is rich with houses and land. He holds the world in the palm of his hand. Oh, rubies and diamonds, silver and gold. Tell him I'm a child of God. Say it. Who I am. Who I am. Anybody ask you? Just tell him. Anybody? Who you are?
know he is. Oh,
Yes, he is.
Job said,
May not come when you want it.
but he will.
Be there right on time.
I tell you, he's been
On time, God. Yes, he is.
You can ask the children of Israel, trapped
There's a sweet, sweet spirit in this place, and I know that it's the Spirit of the Lord. There are sweet expressions on each face, and I know they feel the Spirit of the Lord. Sweet Holy Spirit, sweet heavenly dove, oh, stay right there with us, filling us, filling us, filling us with your love, and for these blessings, yeah, we lift our hearts in praise. Without a doubt, we'll know that we have been revived when we shall leave this place. There are sweet, sweet spirits in this place, and I know they feel the Spirit. They feel the Spirit of the Lord. There are sweet expressions on each face, yeah. And I know they feel the presence of the Lord. Sweet Holy Spirit, sweet heavenly dove, stay right here with us, yeah, filling us, filling us, filling us with your love. And for these blessings, Lord, we lift our hearts in praise. That we have been revived when we shall leave this place. There's a sweet Holy Spirit.
I'm not here to sing. I wouldn't want to ruin the evening if I if I did. But if the Spirit moves me, you never know. You never know. Welcome, everyone. This is one of my favorite evenings every year here at NYU School of Law. I'm Troy McKenzie, Dean of the Law School, and it is my honor and privilege and pleasure to welcome everyone to the 28th Annual Derrick Bell Lecture on Race in American Society. And I stand here with a mix of pride and humility. Pride that this institution was the place that Derrick Bell called home for so many years, and humility that we are following in the footprint, the steps of a giant here this evening. This is a tradition that began many years ago because throughout his life, Derrick Bell shared his wisdom, his passion, his sense of integrity, which permeated every aspect of his career. And in recognition of his achievements and all of those aspects of Derrick Bell as a scholar, as a teacher, as a leader, as a thinker, this law school decided to welcome this lecture. I should also add that when Derrick passed away, we awarded him posthumously the law school's Distinguished Teaching Award in 2012. And I think of these lectures as Derrick Bell continuing to teach us many years on. That is the mission of this lecture. It has been to teach and examine in the way that Derrick Bell did so forcefully, to look at the role of race in American society, to provide a critical platform for scholars and activists to share their insights on racial justice in all of its dimensions. Tonight, we are doubly privileged to have a leading thinker and scholar, Professor Mehrsa Baradaran. Doubly because not only is she an accomplished scholar, she is also an alum of NYU School of Law. So welcome home. Her lecture is entitled The Spirit of the Law, Race and Legal Hypocrisy. We will hear from her in a moment. But before I do, I have another welcome and thanks. Professor Baradaran will be formally introduced in a moment. Before her introduction, I want to talk a little bit about the Center on Race, Inequality, and the Law. That center is led by my faculty colleague, Vincent Sutherland, working together with Executive Director Jason Williamson. It really is a testament to the work and the vision of Derrick Bell, and it continues his legacy by offering courses, resources to scholars, to students and others on subjects related to race, inequality, and the law. I also want to thank the NYU Law Alumni of Color Association. I knew this before I became dean, but it turns out the power behind the throne is LACA, and I'm really happy that that continues to be true. I'm going to close by introducing my friend, our friend, Dr. Janet Dewart-Bell. But before I do so, an important note for those of you who are seeking CLE credit this evening. Please note that this lecture is eligible for 1 credit hour of CLE credit in the area of professional practice on diversity, inclusion, and elimination of bias. And if you are seeking CLE credit, please be sure to sign in and sign out at the registration desk out in the lobby here. Now, Dr. Janet Dewart-Bell. As I said, indeed. Janet really is the one who helped to conceive this lecture as a birthday present to Derrick Bell. Her professional and personal commitment to racial justice, equal rights, education, and fairness in communication really is exceptional. She is an activist, she is a leader, and she has always been dedicated to promoting initiatives that increase diversity and equality for all. She holds a doctorate from Antioch University, and she is also an author. She is the author of Lighting the Fires of Freedom, African American Women in the Civil Rights Movement, and is also co-editor with Vincent Sutherland of Race, Rights, and Redemption, the Derrick Bell Lectures on the Law and Critical Race Theory. I would also like to acknowledge members of Derrick's family, Derrick Bell III and Carter Bell. We are always, always delighted to have them back here at NYU. I want to thank everyone who has made tonight's lecture and celebration possible. There has been so much effort in pulling this all together. I always look forward to hearing the phenomenal choir. And I am now going to turn the podium over to Dr. Janet Dewart-Bell.
Good evening. Thank you, Dean McKenzie, not only for your institutional support as the dean of this great law school, but also for your personal, your gracious support. It's so much appreciated. Those of you who knew Derrick, and those of you who didn't know him, let me tell you a little story. Derrick lived to teach, and teaching kept him alive. For him, it was always students first. This was a mantra in our family. Before the internet, students could call at 2 and 3 in the morning, and he would pick up the phone, much to my consternation. In that universal encyclopedia, his portrait is next to the definition of mentor. For him, there was no higher calling than teacher. It is always gratifying and humbling that students who never met him in person are very much his students, continuing to carry on his work with integrity and dedication. Derrick was a strategist who gave us a playbook. He was a patriot, a war veteran. I need to say that these days because some people try to say those who are progressive, that are looking for a universal truth and love, try to put people aside. Derrick Bell really encompassed the whole human universal experience. I see a lot of nodding of heads here. While his prophecies were sometimes dire, y'all know they were, he did not give in to cynicism and despair. We lived joy in the midst of the struggle. He always kept hope alive. And like the dean, I want to acknowledge the Bell sons, including one who is not with us tonight, Derrick Bell III, Douglas Du Bois Bell, and Carter Robeson Bell. If y'all know your history, you note the significance of those names. As the family wit, Carter notes that he has 3 last names, Carter being in honor of one of Derrick's mentor, Robert L. Carter, and his wife, Gloria. The late Judge Carter argued the first Brown v. Board of Education case before the Supreme Court and taught at this school. By the way, Derrick's other great mentor, besides Thurgood Marshall, was the late civil rights attorney and judge, Constance Baker Motley, whom he assisted in integrating the universities of Georgia and Mississippi. I especially and always want to lift up the memory of Derrick's first wife, Jewel Hairston Bell, who many of you knew. You knew Derrick before I did. She died before Derrick and I met. As partners, she and Derrick set the standard. 28 years ago, the Bell Lecture co-founders shared a dream with me. Judge Robert L. Carter, the also late Paulette Jones Robinson, and here tonight with us, Bill Kerstetter and Valerie Kavanaugh. Would you please stand up, Bill and Valerie? Don't be shy, I know you're not. They represent an illustrious and fierce group of social justice and legal advocates. And when I had this crazy notion of a lecture series, they seeded the first lecture. Also in our village is the international lawyer, Alice Young, one of Derrick's first students at Harvard. I know you're not shy, Alice, because Derrick would say that Alice Young's mission in life was to destroy all stereotypes of Asians, particularly Asian women. So she was one of the first Asian and women students at Harvard University. Please stand up, Alice. She, along with Harvard professor and Bell student, the late, great Charles Ogletree, helped endow this series. Also present is Lisa Marie Boykin, class of '95, NYU, a first among equals. We've had major, where's Lisa? I know you're not shy. I mean, really. And then in later years, we had major support from Dr. Kitty Muldoon Steele and Louis Steele, and from Ted and Nina Wells. And I want to say deep personal thanks to the former deans of this law school, John Sexton, who was a Bell student at Harvard, who championed this lecture series from the beginning, and to the subsequent deans before the great Troy McKenzie, Ricky Revesz, and Trevor Morrison. And of course, Dean McKenzie acknowledged LACA, the Law Alumni of Color Association. I would like to do that too. And its president, Rafiq Kalamuddin. It always sounds like poetry to me. They also honored Derrick with scholarships in his name. Special thanks to the Office of Development and Alumni Relations for their care and attention to this lecture series every year. Special thanks to Director Eleanor Ellie Fallon and Associate Director Alyssa Ward. And on behalf of the Bell extended family, we pledge continued commitment to this wonderful law school, represented in part by this lecture series and the courtyard bench with a plaque in Derrick's honor, a place to renew your commitment to defend our fragile democracy. I should note too that Derrick donated his archives to NYU, and we encourage students and other scholars to mine the many treasures they hold. And this is one of my favorite parts, embarrassing Randy Hertz. I don't know what I'd do without Randy Hertz, and there are many people who would agree with me. He is brilliant, he is kind, and he is humble. And he became the faculty liaison for the Bell Lecture since Derrick's passing. Students love Randy. As with Derrick, Randy is student-focused. I call him student-obsessed. He, like Derrick, is truly a gentleman and a scholar. Can someone pull Randy up because he's probably hiding on the side? At graduation, and don't the rest of the faculty members be mad at me, when they mention Randy's name, there's always a great deal of applause and appreciation because Randy goes beyond the call of duty all the time. The Bell lecturers have been consistently wonderful, stellar scholars. Tonight's lecturer continues that tradition. Let me also add, important to say during these times, they also embody bold thinking, commitment to education, courage, respect for their students no matter their backgrounds or challenging ideas, and they possess unimpeachable ethical standards. I have a couple other things that I need to do before I sit down, and one is to introduce my friend, Vincent Sutherland, who will introduce tonight's Bell lecturer. Vincent is an assistant professor of clinical law and faculty director of the Center on Race, Inequality, and the Law at NYU. He teaches the criminal defense and reentry clinic and a seminar on race and the criminal system. He holds a BA from the University of Connecticut, a JD from Temple University School of Law, and LLM from Georgetown University. His expertise centers on racial justice, civil rights, and the criminal legal system. Now get this, his research explores the intersection of race and the criminal legal system, including the social and racial justice implications of predictive and surveillance technologies. His most recent scholarship applies a racial justice lens rooted in critical race theory to the design, use, and oversight of algorithmic tools in the criminal justice system. Well, how about that? Prior to his appointment to NYU law faculty, he was the inaugural executive director of the Center on Race, Inequality, and the Law. And before joining NYU in that role, he was an assistant federal public defender with the Federal Defenders for the Southern District of New York. His time at the Federal Defenders was preceded by 7 years at the NAACP Legal Defense and Educational Fund, where he was senior counsel. But before Vincent comes to introduce tonight's wonderful Bell lecturer, I want to thank the choir from First Presbyterian Church, who will join us all in celebrating by singing Happy Birthday. And the reason we do this lecture series was founded in 1995 to celebrate Derrick's 65th birthday, and music has always been an important part of our lives, of Derrick's life. And so his birthday is November 6th. That's why the lecture every year is in November, as close to November 6th as is practicable. So we do that. And so with that, will you join me? And don't be shy again by singing. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, 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 happy birthday Happy birthday.
Good evening. That's an easy act to follow. Thanks so much, Dr. Bell, for that really kind introduction and those wonderful words. And thanks to all of you for being here with us tonight as we celebrate the tremendous legacy of Professor Bell, as we do each year, and welcome yet another brilliant and dynamic speaker to teach and inspire us for this 28th installment of the Bell Lecture Series. As Dr. Bell mentioned, my name is Vincent Sutherland, and I'm the faculty director of the Center on Race and Equality in the Law here at the law school. The center's broad mission is to confront the laws, policies, and practices that lead to the oppression and marginalization of people of color. More specifically, our work focuses on the countless ways in which race and the legacy of racial inequality in this country impact nearly every aspect of our lives, from the racial disparities playing out at every level of the criminal legal system, to the race-based discrimination that affects the housing market across the country, from the harmful and manipulative use of technology by government actors to exert social control over communities of color, to an education system that continues to fail Black and brown children nationwide, from the haphazard infrastructure development that serves to further isolate communities of color, to disproportionate environmental harms being visited upon those same communities. As Professor Bell has taught us, racism in the United States is enduring. And while our work reflects that unfortunate reality, it also reflects the joy and value in the struggle that he so rightly encouraged us all to undertake to advance racial justice. The center engages in its work through a combination of research, policy, advocacy, coalition building, litigation, and public conversations with the goal of centering the lived experiences of people of color and facilitating the work of advocates, scholars, organizers, and activists committed to the cause of racial justice across every sector of our society. I would like to thank the center's incredible executive director, Jason Williamson, who was unfortunately not able to be here tonight with us, but whose tremendous leadership, smarts, and hard work has been invaluable to our work. I'd also like to thank our two postgraduate fellows, Tolu Lawal and Ted Jack, both recent graduates of this law school, who worked so hard to bring our work to life over the last couple years. Our senior research and advocacy fellow, Terrence Pitts, who's done a tremendous job of leading our race and technology work, and our incredible student fellows, as Dr. Bell said, it's all about students when it comes down to it. Miriam El-Nassa, Zoe Chang, Fatou Kaba, Jennifer Fu, Coleman Powell, and Sareti Toshemi, whose dedication to our work has allowed us to make invaluable contributions to the fight for racial justice. I'd also like to thank Andrew Friedman, who is the founder and director of the Center's Initiative for Community Power, which deploys community organizing and power building to transform our vision of dynamic democracy rooted in racial and economic justice to a reality. And I can't leave out our Center's administrator, Carolyn Schachtel, who does all the work behind the scenes to make sure we're all in the places where we need to be, doing the work we need to do. And of course, I have to thank Deborah Archer, former faculty director of the Center, Troy McKenzie for his support of the Center, Trevor Morrison, and Tony Thompson, who was the founding faculty director of the Center as well. As part of our ongoing work, the Center is honored to serve as an institutional home for the Bell Lecture Series. And it's my great privilege to introduce our esteemed speaker for tonight, Mehrsa Baradaran. She's a professor of law at the University of California, Irvine School of Law. Her dynamic work focuses on banking law, financial inclusion, and racial inequality. Professor Baradaran is the author of How the Other Half Banks, Exclusion, Exploitation, and the Threat to Democracy, The Color of Money, Black Banks and the Racial Wealth Gap, and the forthcoming The Quiet Coup, Neoliberalism and the Looting of America. Her books have received multiple awards, including the 2019 Best Book Award by Urban Affairs Association for The Color of Money. Professor Baradaran has also been active in policymaking at the national and international level. She's advised presidential candidates, US senators, congressmen on a variety of issues related to racial and economic justice. She served on 2 presidential transition teams. I'll let you guess which president she was not providing advice and guidance for in terms of the transition. testified in multiple Senate and House hearings, and spoken to world leaders at forums like the World Bank and the Federal Reserve. She also today spent most of her time in the library at this law school, which says something about who she is, both as a person and as a professor. We're so grateful to have her with us tonight and thrilled to hear her lecture entitled The Spirit of Law, Race and Legal Hypocrisy. Please join me in welcoming Professor Baradaran to the stage.
Thank you so much. What an honor. Thank you to Troy McKenzie. He mooted me on my job talk a long time ago. Thank you to Janet Bell. Thank you to Vincent. Thank you to Derrick Bell for showing us what one life as a light can do to illuminate so many. And I feel his spirit here today. Thank you. So when I graduated law school, I was pregnant, and that former fetus is sitting here right now. Syra, can you say hi? Thank you. Syra, thank you. Syra she just turned 18 and also just submitted her applications for college. So if anyone knows anything about that whole process, please come find me afterwards. So I chose to come to NYU because when I showed up to the new students admit day right here, John Sexton met me, gave me a big hug, and handed me a scholarship, which I needed. And then we listened to Brian Stevenson talk about justice, and I didn't even think about going anywhere else after that. Because it just so happened that justice is exactly what I wanted to learn about. I started in the fall of 2002, barely a year after 9/11, and lived right by the still smoldering World Trade Center. The World Trade Center is where the INS office, Immigration and Natural Services, now ICE, was, and that place was, for me, a happy place. We were refugees, and America had granted us asylum from war. Growing up in Iran, we would sleep on the concrete floor basement with gas masks during the 8 years of the Iran-Iraq War. And so the World Trade Center was, for me, the place where my dreams had come true, and I got to leave the war to live in peace. And here it was, the smoldering ruins, the violence, and the innocent lives lost. That war that we had escaped had come here. That same violence spawning hatred that would, in time, spawn more violence. I walked by it every day with my law books to learn justice and to practice immigration law. That's what I thought anyway. My first week, orientation week, we broke up in our small lawyering groups, and the whole week we did a single hypothetical about a vehicle in the park. Does anyone remember the vehicle in the park? Okay. Do we still do that? Yes, no. Okay. The scenario was this. There's a park sign that says no vehicles in the park, and you're asked to argue whether our client, who's riding either a motorcycle, a tricycle, or an ambulance, is violating the law. So we had to look up cases about what kinds of things counted as vehicles and use different arguments like textualism, which is that only the text matters. And then, so we looked up what vehicle meant in a bunch of dictionaries, and law and economics and other legal theory, which was the interpretation of how would the market be more efficient depending on what interpretation we made. We spent a ton of time on this scenario, and it seemed to me then completely pointless. What did this have to do with justice? It wasn't until about a year ago, as I was deep into research in legal theory for my third book, The Quiet Coup, that I realized, and I should have realized this earlier, I understand, but that the vehicle in the park scenario was actually the basis of one of the most famous legal debates of all time. In 1958, two professors, H.L.A. Hart and Lon Fuller, began a series of debates that were published in the Harvard Law Review that continue to be cited, and in fact, the NYU Law Review did a 50-year anniversary of the debate, which they published in the NYU Law Review, if you want to go check it out. The debate had offset two of the dominant legal theories at the time, legal realism or legal positivism and natural law. Hart, the realist positivist, presented the view that laws had to be accepted at their face value. Was a bike allowed in the park? Just look at the plain meaning of the law, no vehicles in the park, meaning the bike's not a vehicle, for an answer. In other words, laws were not did not necessarily have to be tied to some moral principle, and could be valid and clear regardless of their provenance. That makes sense, right? Justice Holmes, who's a legal realist, summed up this position best. He says, men make their own laws, that these laws do not flow from some mysterious omnipresence in the sky, and judges are not independent mouthpieces of the infinite. Fuller was a natural law theorist, and he didn't like the bike example, so he changed the scenario by using a different kind of vehicle. What if a group of war protesters wanted to mount a military truck in the park for a demonstration? If the park had issued the law, no vehicles in the park, to prevent this act of speech, wouldn't that make the law invalid because it violated a greater principle of free speech? To natural law theorists, there is a fixed, eternal principle that the law tries to approximate, and if the intent of the law was immoral, then the law could not be accepted even at face value. Hart and Fuller, of course, weren't really talking about vehicles in the park. In fact, the debate emerged from a much more pressing political and moral issue. And it was in 1958. The debate started a few months before that, but the moral issue was the validity of Nazi laws, okay? The actual case that led to Hart to propose the vehicle hypothetical concerned a German woman who was having an affair, but was inconveniently married at the time. And in accordance with Nazi anti-sedition laws, she turned her husband in for privately made comments in which he disparaged Hitler, and which was a crime punishable by death. So the Nazis did not kill the husband, but sent him off to war, and upon his return, and understandably angry, he wished to have his wife charged with a crime of illegally depriving another person of freedom, which was also a law at the time, but not a Nazi law. So the court convicted the woman because although the Nazi laws were valid, they were immoral or contrary to the sound of conscience and the sense of justice of all decent human beings. Both Hart and Fuller believed that the Nazi laws to be immoral and invalid, but if that were the case and the wife was committing a crime while following an immoral law, how far could that principle extend? I think that they weren't really actually talking about Nazi law either, but a crisis of legal theory right here at home. The initial debate, after all, occurred just a few months after the Warren Court handed down its decision in Brown versus Board of Ed, which was about school segregation, or desegregation, obviously, but about something much more profound. How could the Supreme Court invalidate 100 years of law? By what authority? All precedent and all legal theory, every restatement of law, not to mention the Constitution as interpreted by that high court, was with the Board of Ed on this one. How can a court go against a law based on what? And segregation was a law that was based on the Constitution, right? So Chief Justice Taney explained in the 1957 Dred Scott that because Black people had, quote, no rights which the white man was bound to respect, because of this fixed and natural law, Black men and women, he said, were justly and lawfully reduced to slavery for his benefit. White men's rights to land, women, and all the world's people and resources were natural, endowed by the Creator, universal, and immutable. So went the natural rights doctrine. And that was the precedent for which he could cite, Taney, going back to even John Marshall, who was the most important Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, who stripped Native Americans of their rights to sell property in the 1835 Johnson versus McIntosh case, which directly led to the Trail of Tears, plunder and slaughter, because the right to buy and sell property was only given to a specific subset of white men, the industrious and rational, based on universal principles of natural law, said Justice Marshall that indigenous tribes didn't have the rights because to leave them in possession of their country was to leave the country a wilderness. He cited to none other than John Locke, whose theory of property was that only certain people could own it. So this also stemmed from this natural law rights of the Creator, endowing certain people with these rights, and of course, to be an indigenous tribe was to be, by nature, not a rights holder. Never mind that the tribes had sold their land using contract law, lawyers, and negotiations, right? The Supreme Court referred to them as savages, even though the tribes had proceeded up through the appellate courts with the law, had done what Thurgood Marshall had done, Thurgood Marshall and the NAACP had done with Brown. That's how Johnson versus McIntosh was also decided. So no matter. In fact, the indigenous tribes were debating John Locke over in Europe at the time about theories of property. But President Jackson was on the warpath, and Justice Marshall knew that he could either bring the court's legitimacy to bear or face off against the let him enforce it president. So for hundreds of years, the law had been on the wrong side of morality. The question for the Warren Court was this: was a harmful law to be followed just for the sake of precedent? They said no and invalidated the entire Jim Crow legal order because it was wrong. And for other reasons, as Derrick Bell will point out, there were other things going on. But the justifications on which these laws were based had gone through several different legal theories at the time. Okay, so there was the natural law endowed by the creator. Then there was a pseudoscientific, Darwinism, social Darwinism. Oh, it's because of science that they don't have these rights. And here in 1958, post-Brown was a precipice, a crisis of legal theory. Because if you eradicate a whole body of law, what separates your legal system from, say, Nazi law? Given that Nazi law, the Nuremberg codes, were based on the very sophisticated legal system in America on Jim Crow, indigenous rights. That was the model which they used. So this was and remains the issue, and one that I want to talk about. What makes law legitimate? Put in another way, is there something there at the fulcrum of the scales of justice? I hope you'll excuse me as I quote from the New Testament. In 3 Corinthians 3-6, if anyone wants to look it up, Paul is explaining what he calls an epistle, or his message of his ministry, and says that the epistle was written not with ink, but with the Spirit of the living God, not in tables of stone, but in fleshy tables of the heart. And that this new law, which he calls the New Testament, was, this is the important part, not of the letter, but of the Spirit. For the letter killeth, but the Spirit giveth life. That gap between the spirit of the law and its letter, what it says and what you can get away with, word and deed, that's the space I want to focus on. This is the squishy region of morality, right and wrong, the spirit, but it is the only place that matters. The spirit of the law is its animating principle, its oomph, right? Its teeth, its guts, the thing written in the fleshy tablets of the heart, as opposed to those etched in stone that could change. The undefinable and essential thing that we might as well call justice. Without justice, the law is just an empty shell, a husk made of nice words and mandates covering up unfairness, as Jim Crow showed. That was law. Water. By the end of my 1L year, the US invaded Iraq. The torture memos came out during my 2L year, right after those photos of Abu Ghraib. And in those memos, 50 pages in one, 81 pages in the other, written by 2 prominent lawyers in the DOJ. In these 2 memos, these bright legal minds cite to a dictionary, 25 different dictionaries, and they define every single word of a law that basically says, thou shalt not torture, in so many words, to mean actually it's okay technically, formalistically, legalistically, and under the theory of textualism, to torture. The letter of the law being a killer in this case. I also grew up under the letter of the law. After the Iranian population had tried for decades to get out from under the boot of British oil and Russian oil interests, after 3 mass nonviolent revolutions of the population against the rampant corruption and inequality, the 3rd revolution succeeded in removing the tentacles of foreign oil interests and our vitality, but they did so through violence and systematic terror. To maintain control over the Iranian population, the newly formed Islamic Republic of Iran murdered hundreds of thousands of people in mass executions. Another 100,000 boys were sent to martyrdom during the 8 years war with Iraq that spanned my childhood. The fascists repressed millions into silence in their homes, while every Iranian not already in prison lived in terror of what would come next. In fact, when my mother was taken one night from our home during a family dinner, a bag placed over her head, her body put in the back of a truck in the cold winter, and driven to certain torture or death, she recalls feeling an overwhelming feeling of relief that finally the terror she had been trying to keep at bay had come for her. My mother served 3.5 years for joining with other mothers to protest the war. They tortured each prisoner until they divulged more names, but my mother didn't give up a single name because she's amazing. Which is why she was not released like the other mothers. So my mother no longer recognized these men, and that's why she wouldn't give anything to them. They were regular Iranians who had turned into zombies with guns enforcing the letter of the law. So that is what I wanted to study in law school, justice, and not what constituted a vehicle in the park. Because the Iranian Revolution was impossible until it was inevitable. Rule of law is one of those intangible things that you don't appreciate until it's gone, and it disappears when the law's legitimacy is gone. That gap between the spirit of the law and the letter of the law, between law and justice, that is the crack in which hypocrisy enters, and is a corrosive agent that wipes out the law's legitimacy. It may not start off as a killer, but it'll get there. The corruption of law is a one-way ratchet. It grows until it consumes everything. The basic themes of the books that I have written have, in retrospect, been about pointing out some place in the law where the law is, let's just say, not fully honest. Just where are the myths or the, let's call it, bullshit ideas that lead to bad things? I focus on banking and financial law, and there are a lot of places where the theory is, let's say, free market capitalism, but the law is not really that at all, but more like lobbying, favoritism, corruption. Money on the market is where a lot of the ideologies of the past have been lodged and where the sins of the past, if we will, continue to perpetuate harm. The last book was another one along these lines, but was much, much, much harder because I decided to keep pulling at this thread and to go back to see where the first bullshit was, go back to Hayek and to John Marshall and to Locke, listen to all the Nixon tapes and read all the Kissinger files, and my poor editor and my children, it was a beast. And I realized way, way, way too late in the process of writing it that I was doing what you were not supposed to do when you were doing research, which is to do me-search. Not directly, but I had this one chapter, chapter 2, that I could not finish despite how hard I tried. It's not that I couldn't write, I probably wrote 300 pages for one chapter and read a library of books and articles. And it was a chapter linking the anti-colonial revolts of the 1960s with the civil rights era and showing how the bullshit, let's say, of free market theories and myths suppressed those revolutions. I was trying to figure out why what happened to me had happened to me. Like, not factually, I knew the history, but like theoretically. Instead of therapy, I was trying to figure out, I think, what was there at the fulcrum of justice, right? If anything at all. Maybe simplistically and naively, is everything bad and wrong, or is there good? Is there even an arc to the moral universe? And you know what? I'm sure therapy is really great, but I think I figured it out. Justice. Okay. I can't prove this or cite it, and I didn't learn this in stuff I read, but here's an opinion. Justice, I think, is a feeling, and it is one that we all share. When my mom was in prison in Iran, my sister and I would go in and out of the various prisons she was in, she would stay in. And she was one of the only convicts with kids, like I said, because usually mothers didn't get imprisoned. And the other female prisoners would make us art, and they would just hang out with us because we were the only kids. And I was out with the girls, as my mom would call them, and something began to happen one day. And if I was with my mom, she would have taken me away to not see what was happening, because she's a mom. But I really wanted to see what was happening, and the girls were no match for my curiosity. So I was around 4 or 5 at the time, and what I saw was this. There were these guards, and they were kicking and hitting with their guns, and one of them had a Quran, the book that we had at our house. And the old woman, there was an old woman, and she was lying, who was on her hands and knees, begging them to stop. She was skinny, and her legs were bare. I won't go on, but it was a very memorable moment, and I can go back there now. Here's the odd thing. I felt no fear at all. I had no words or explanations, and those are rare things. Fear is probably my most dominant feeling in my childhood, and I'm rarely without an inner monologue. But my mind went blank, and that feeling in my stomach, there was just a siren blaring, radiating, wrong, 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 unfair, unjust. I didn't talk to anyone, didn't tell anyone, and I didn't know what she had done, what law she had not followed, but it was obviously unjust, whatever was happening. And after that moment, I didn't trust a single adult. No one in my classes, none of my teachers, none of the principals, anyone who was part of this regime, anyone that was associated with that thing could not be trusted. And I knew, so their authority was defunct insofar as that injustice was happening over there. So I think and suspect, and this is where I went back to after failing to finish chapter 2, ultimately I did, but that place in my gut is where those scales of justice probably resided, not in the logic here. And I think that there is a balancing scale in each of us, and I think it's off kilter for each of us. When MLK said, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere," I think that is literally true. That sense or the feeling of injustice is a big and forceful feeling, but it is nonverbal. It's blunt and it's binary, yes or no. If I were to put the feeling somewhere in our bodies, again, I would say it's somewhere around the stomach. And if our scales are off for too long, and I do think that there's a collective scale here that brings in all of us, and if the scales are off too long, someone will try to fix it. And some people will say that the way to fix the injustice, corruption, or inequality is easy. Just kill those people over there. This is why I began the book with Marjorie Taylor Greene and her theory of the Jewish space lasers having caused the fires in California, which got some laughs, but it wasn't funny at all. That she is one of the growing cadre of people who find simple villains in the Rothschilds or whoever she cited, but was an alarming thing for me. And so I wrote a book about how it was a legal system that is increasingly formalistic and rigid and prone to corruption, that obviously the fire was not caused by, lasers or the Rothschilds. But here's the thing, I realized to my horror that Marjorie Taylor Greene and I, see how that sentence structure is uncomfortable? That she and I have the same feeling of injustice, and that her explanations were more salient and more popular. They would always win out because she could do it in one Facebook post. And it took me 5 years and reading the entire Library of Humanity to try to get at this thing. And she's head of the most powerful bloc in Congress right now, among the top 5 Republican fundraisers. So again, justice is a feeling, and it's resonant. And when there is injustice, we live in an unjust world. When one group of people enslaves or exploits another, we live in a world where that is possible. It is possible to be born on the wrong side of a wall, a gun, a debt contract, and that is the world that we feel and we know we live in. And justice anywhere is just injustice, period. And when justice is doled out as though it is a scarce resource, it grows only scarcer. And that is a meager form of justice. Again, justice is not a balancing scale held with blindfolded eyes. In fact, did you know that the blindfold wasn't on the original justice? The original Lady Justice was a warrior in the battle between good and evil. That's in the Supreme Court inside. And then the blindfold was actually introduced by a French satire comic who put the blindfold on so that justice could ignore the corruption that was happening right in front of her. And yeah, and what is law? So if justice is this, law is words, tools, it's a dictionary, it's a translation, it's up here. So if justice is in our stomach, the law is in our heads. And our culture, and I am very guilty of this, overemphasizes what we can know up here. Reasoning and putting the scales on the one side and on the other, on the one hand, and here's these legal theories. But the knowing is not there. That's the dictionary. The letter of the law is a killer. If we all have a feeling of injustice, and that is pinging and it's blaring, it is Marjorie Taylor Greene's explanation that is going to be salient. And that's the road that a lot of regimes have gone down. And historically, when people know and they feel that something is wrong, what happens is they do resort to violence. Like the Nazis. In 1919, at the Treaty of Versailles, the British and the Americans and the French imposed war reparations for World War I on the Germans, who were forced to pay $133 billion. It took them 92 years to pay back. A young economist named John Maynard Keynes was at the meeting, and he was appalled. He called President Wilson the greatest fraud in history for letting the French and the British talk him into imposing that crushing debt. He published his first book that year, The Economic Consequences of the Peace, in which he says that economic inequalities and war are tied together. But here's what he says about the restitution payments that would go into the coffers of the French, by the way, and British. The French, by the way, are still getting reparations from Haiti for their lost property in the Haitians. So this is John Maynard Keynes. If we take the view that for at least a generation to come, Germany cannot be, this is in 1919, if we take the view that for at least a generation to come, Germany cannot be trusted with even a modicum of prosperity, that while all of our recent allies are angels of light, all of our recent enemies are children of the devil, that year by year, Germany must be kept impoverished and her children starved and crippled, that she must be ringed round by enemies, then Western leaders will impose these onerous reparations, not allowing Germany to regain a part of her material prosperity and find a means of livelihood for the industrial populations of her towns. But if this view of nations and of the relations to each other is adopted by the democracies of Western Europe and is financed by the United States, heaven help us all. If we aim deliberately at the impoverishment of Germany, vengeance, I dare predict, will not limp. Nothing can then delay for very long that final civil war between the forces of reaction and the despairing convulsions of revolution, before which the horrors of the late German war will fade into nothing, and which will destroy whoever is victor, the civilization and the progress of our generation. Even though the result disappoints us, must we not base our actions on better expectations and believe that the prosperity and happiness of one country promotes that of others, that the solidarity of man is not a fiction, and that nations can still afford to treat other nations as fellow creatures? 1919 is when Hitler began his rise. He was jailed and opposed several times. It took until 1933 for him to be voted into power. Meanwhile, the Germans were suffering under unremitting debt, and the Third Reich offered them a final solution. My daughter saw me writing this on the plane and was like, "Mom, do not bring up the Nazis." So why am I bringing up the Nazis? Not because I think we're close, not 1932 close, but maybe 1919 close. Because I feel that we live in a system that is unjust, where the wealth gap between black and white families is 10-1, where your zip code determines your lifespan and educational opportunities, where our votes are being drowned out by money. Do we all know it is unjust? Maybe not up here, but I think we know it in our guts. Even Jefferson knew it. Thomas Jefferson, he who wrote those inspiring words in the Declaration of Independence that all men were created equal, endowed by their creator with unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. When he used his fancy French pens to write those words, there was a lie already there. He himself held hundreds of slaves, including eventually his children and their mother, Sally Hemings. Thomas Jefferson understood very clearly the space between the letter and the spirit. He understood tyranny. His declaration is a point-by-point denunciation of that unjust legal order, the tyranny he rejected for freedom. The gap between law and justice was right there. Madison called it America's original sin. Jefferson called it an abominable crime, a most unremitting despotism, and the worm only grew into a monster. So we find Jefferson in April of 1820. He's at the end of his life, and he's trying to ignore the news. And slavery is metastasizing westward, and it has gained steam. It's spreading into new territories with the Louisiana Purchase, and Jefferson is waking up in terror every night. This is in 1820. The Civil War doesn't start for another 40-something years, and Jefferson already knows it's going to happen. And here's what he writes a friend. I had for a long time ceased to read the newspapers or pay any attention to public affairs, confident they were in good hands and content to be a passenger in our bark to the shore, for which I'm not distant. But this momentous question, like fire bell in the night, awakened and filled me with terror. I considered it at once as the knell of the Union, the death knell of the Union. It is hushed indeed for the moment, but this is a reprieve only, Jefferson knows. Not a final sentence, a geographical line coinciding with a marked principle, moral and political, once conceived and held up to the angry passions of men. He's saying that this is a moral and political question, and it's not going away. This geographical line, no law is going to fix this. It will never be obliterated, and every new irritation will mark it deeper and deeper. I can say with conscious truth that there is not a man on earth who would sacrifice more than I would to relieve us from this heavy reproach in my practicable way. We have the wolf by the ear, and we can neither hold him nor safely let him go. With justice is on one scale and self-preservation in the other. And then he says that the generation of 76, their sacrifices will have gone to waste. Justice or self-preservation. And the latter was a myth. There was no self-preservation. The guy was going to die. And the war was going to take everything that they had done. I think we have this scale, and it's not out there, it's in here. But that the magic of humanity is that we can cover up our uncomfortable feelings with myths, stories, ideologies, and bullshit. But, as James Baldwin said, time catches up with kingdoms and crushes them. gets its teeth into doctrines and rends them. Time reveals the foundation on which any kingdom rests and eats at those foundations, and it destroys doctrines by proving them to be untrue. Time rends, but only because of scholars like Derrick Bell, who are constantly calling out that hypocrisy. The bullshit law and ideology that used to cover up injustice had to be constantly updated. And it is currently going through another revision, as it was at the time of the Hart and Fuller debate. And so what now? The fascists are coming, and here are the signs. Good luck. And I hope I can immigrate to another country that will take me. Actually, not at all. Nobody will take me, I'll just be honest. Okay. I have never actually felt more optimistic about our potential to reach justice. I can hear some of you thinking that whether maybe it would have been a good idea to do some therapy and get my head straight, but and I'm going to go back now to things that I can't prove. To aim at justice, we can't, I think, rely on our head or our gut. We must go through the heart. And here's where it gets mushy and soft. Trust, solidarity, these words, that's the glue that bind us together. Mushy stuff. But also credit, right? The origin of the word credit is to believe, to trust, right? All the words in finance and banking, trust, credit, bank on, right? That's the original principle under the market. Now, I'm going to lose some of you here, right? Because I think one of the bullshit ideologies that suppressed the 1960s revolutions was a myth about markets and globalization and capitalism, right? That we were in it, that we had free markets, that freedom wasn't before markets, okay? The last time we had free markets was the Silk Road, when all nations were trading with each other. And that's when the theories of democracy and justice that the Greeks took and became part of the canon, that's when those were hatched. And it rested on theories of trust. And I'm going to restrain myself from going on a tangent. Just know that that's happening. I think money and credit and the market is the heart. I know. The real market, not the imaginary one of the neoliberal imagination. The go to the market, and I'm gonna bring up Aladdin. You buy the lamp, you don't know if it has a genie. You trust a person, and you don't know if there's genius in their idea, but you buy the lamp anyway. And then you don't take it back. And a lot of those lamps have genies. I know that that's a tired old metaphor, but it was introduced into the canon in the 1800s when the French were taking slaves. And it was given by a Syrian trader who, it was a very different story. And it really was about that trust. Do not enslave the genie in the lamp. And genie, of course, is rooted in the word genius, jinn, spirit, right? That is the endowed thing that we all have. So I think it is that. I think money, credit, these markets, these are the currencies of our society, literally and figuratively. Money only works because we believe it to work, right? The market is what is us. The democracy is us. It is the people. It is not some law, some legal tender. It is the trust that we endow to the government to create a symbol, which is the green dollar, a symbol of our trust in it. I'm gonna just not do this in this lecture, but let me just pin that. So I'm gonna call this love. And credit based on trust can be abundant, and it's a renewable resource. Trust only builds more trust, like hope, like love, okay? Scarcity is how we've been dealing with justice and with law. And I think that there's a way through this. So the remedy to scarcity is trust. To maintain our democracy, we must invest in equality, or else risk losing the spirit within the law for its cold, dead letter. The main one, the theories that lodged into money, and I won't have time in this lecture to go into it, but the short idea here is that John Locke, again, that guy, and the British Empire and the gold standard, right? They fixed value into a scarce material symbol, gold, right? Gold is eternal, it is inert, and it's shiny. And they said that is a source of value. And so too, all of those ideas matched perfectly along with race. White, male, British property holders, that was inherent value. And that you couldn't change, right? It was endowed, fixed out there. Some omnipresent thing in the sky that so happened to favor certain people and had endowed gold with that. And those myths stay, and they've created scarcity where there could be and should be abundance. And yet, at the same time, scholarship has rent those ideas of the past. And gold is gone. The theories of John Locke as far as white men and the savages that were actually murdered, right? So the historical projection of calling people that you've just murdered and plundered from savages and barbarians is just insane. Those ideas got embedded anyway into the law, and they're perpetuating themselves. So my first, as an example, my first-year contracts teacher was Barbara Freed, whose son, Sam Bankman-Fried, is a great example, actually, of, I know, am I going to make everything about NYU? If it fits, yes. Yes. I also had a class with Jared Kushner. But Sam Bankman-Fried was given $30 billion of market trust and credit for creating what was clear to me even then when I met him over Zoom at the top of his market valuation, for creating nothing. I mean it, nothing. The market is broken because our value measures are broken. That $30 billion, thank you. And here's where the law and the market converge on race, because racism is the ideology of distrust and separation. It was always a lie that some people are worth more than others. Always a lie. To Thomas Paine, it was common sense that all men being originally equals, no one by birth could have a right to set up his own family in perpetual preference to all others forever. But it wasn't yet common sense that women or other races also were included. And so the 1960s movement had to re-up that. And Frantz Fanon wrote, again, Wretched of the Earth, you have divided us into two species, one rich, one poor. And it's common sense, he might as well have said, that doesn't make sense. There was still too much fear and too much greed to live in peace, and new ideologies were created, even then, to recreate the old order of empire, but under new rules, like money and debt. But time rends, and we are again at this precipice. Justice and freedom and peace, or guns and fear and separation. What is undeniable to me is that we, as a global humanity, because that is the most commonsensical truth about us all, that we are all one, that we will tip in one direction or another, and soonish, because this state of precarious inequality is unsustainable. And my bet is that we make it. Because of Syra and my students and many in this room, my bet, and I think that we have to make it a bet, and that's what I mean. We have to invest in the future that we want, and I can give details later. By putting our money where our future, I'm not asking for money. I don't have details like that, but there's a book. Okay. But by putting our money where our future is, by investing in people and new ideas, and investing in the least invested of all people, which are the red line communities where credit has never entered. Abundant credit. Credit has come with usury, always. By achieving a truly free market, an emphasis on freedom. I have a lot more to say about this in my book, but please forgive me, I'll leave it for another time. Here's what I think, that justice is a prerequisite to a free market. But that we can have mutual prosperity and shared wealth, but it has to be actually mutual and shared. And to do that, the sins of the past, the same ones that kept Jefferson up at night, those same ones that continue to leach the spirit of justice out of our laws have to be remedied. I think that they say this in therapy. You have to deal with the problem to get over it. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you to Professor Baradaran for those incredible remarks. You mentioned Martin Luther King in your speech, in your remarks, and he said that the arc of the moral universe is long but bends towards justice. And of course, the truth is that's not a self-fulfilling prophecy. It requires each of us to do our part by bending that arc, and you've given us, by your words and your example, what we need to take on that work, so thank you. Before we close, I want to thank the people who made all of this happen. Of course, Dr. Bell, of course, Laka, of course, Professor Derrick Bell. I also want to thank the Development and Alumni Relations team, Alyssa Ward, Ellie Fallon, Kat Banzin, Elizabeth Morgan, Stephen Killian, Dana Shin, and Sue Anderson. And to all those who set up this room and arranged it the way it is, who arranged the furniture, cooked the food, serving the drinks and food as well. Thanks to all of you. Until next year, Godspeed and God bless.